everyone, and welcome to the sixth and final part of my series all about teaching English online with Italki. This series is very much aimed at those of you that are considering becoming a digital nomad. Maybe you're looking at working remotely, working online, travelling full-time and earning money as you do so, which is what I do. Firstly, don't forget to check out the playlist, which is linked up above in the card and also in the description down below, and you can check out all the videos in this series as well as other videos I've done in the past on this subject. And don't forget to subscribe because there may be further videos coming in future on this topic. Now, as this is the last video, I'm a bit more relaxed. I'm lying back, so sit back, get a drink, and we're going to talk about problems that you may face when teaching on Italki. Trust me, there's a lot of them. So firstly, probably the biggest problem that you will face, and it's probably the question I've had the most when it comes to Italki, is all about Wi-Fi and connection, particularly if you are travelling full-time like me and you go to places and you're not sure of what the Wi-Fi situation will be. One of the things that I do before I arrive in a location is that in terms of my Airbnb host, I will ask them, what's the Wi-Fi like? Can you possibly send me a screenshot of one of those speed test websites which shows you the upload and download speed? It's a real problem when you get to a place and the Wi-Fi is disastrous. Sometimes you might have to do audio-only lessons, which isn't great, particularly if you're focusing on something like pronunciation and someone needs to see the movement of your mouth. You can't do that if you're just doing it by audio, So that's a problem. With Wi-Fi, I have had numerous problems in the past when it comes to Wi-Fi completely going down for like a whole weekend, or for a short period, or during a lesson. One of the things that you have to make clear to your students is that you are traveling full time. Sometimes you might have these problems, and if they expect that to possibly happen, it's not such of a big problem. One of the things I do, if I do have a huge issue and the Wi-Fi goes down for days, I will go to somewhere like Starbucks and message all of my students and say, look, I've got this problem, can we reschedule for another time? 99.999% of the time, they're totally understanding and absolutely fine about it, because you've got to think about it, they also have these problems with Wi-Fi. It's not just you. You're a human being, you're not a robot, you will have these problems. Okay, the next big obvious topic is sickness. As I said just now, we are human, we get sick. Right now I am sick. Throughout this whole video series I have been sick. I have had a headache, I've had a sore throat, numerous problems, but I've still been continuing, and that's a big question. What is your limit when it comes to how can I continue doing lessons if I'm really this bad? Because it can border on the point of unprofessionalism. If I'm coughing or all the way through a lesson, it's not entirely professional, so you have to weigh that up in your head. Another thing to think about is if it is a toilet-related issue. I'm being specific, which I've had before. Do you want to be running to the toilet every 20 minutes during a lesson? Does that look professional? No, it doesn't. So, we get sick. Again, be open and honest with students when it comes to explaining why you may need to reschedule a lesson. Obviously, it's not great if it happens a lot. Maybe you have a health problem, potentially with me. I'm joking, it doesn't really happen that often, but it's just the same as Wi-Fi issues. Be open and honest with students and they will be absolutely fine about it. When it comes to the point of rescheduling lessons, Italki is not great when it comes to this, I've got to be honest. So when a lesson doesn't happen for whatever reason, there's various options that either you or the student can choose. So student did not attend lesson, teacher did not attend lesson, or reached prior agreement. It's really important that you choose reach prior agreement, you beat them to it effectively, or you remind your student that they need to choose reach prior agreement, because effectively you've talked about it, you've let them know, and you've agreed that you will reschedule for another time. The problem that happens is if a student does select teacher did not attend lesson, you get a warning, your account gets closed off, so you can't receive new requests from students. If you receive this, I think about 3 times, you get banned. You're gone from Italki. I've got to the point where I was 1 lesson missed away from being banned from Italki, but not because of my fault, it's because of the fact that students are choosing the wrong option when it comes to rescheduling lessons. That's a huge issue that Italki really needs to look at. I've fed back on forums, but as yet nothing has happened. So hopefully Italki, you will do something soon for us sick teachers, On to the next point. Something very important that I mentioned in a previous video is about setting your own terms and conditions on your profile, your refund policy, your reschedule policy, things like that. So for me, I'll give you my example. If a student has an issue coming to a first lesson or just doesn't turn up at all, generally I give them the benefit of a doubt, because more than likely something genuine has happened and they have been unable to contact me or have had to reschedule. That's fine, I will allow them to do that. Some teachers will be slightly more strict and say, no, I will request payment for that lesson because it is time that you could have had another lesson effectively, or you could have done instant tutoring or something like that. But it's my decision to be quite lenient about it, considering the amount of issues that I have with Wi-Fi, etc. So it's very much up to you. After that, if they keep doing that, if a student keeps cancelling lessons at the last minute within 24 hours before a lesson, then you might make the decision to put on your terms and conditions that, look, after the first lesson, you will request payment for every single lesson missed. And that's absolutely fine. Don't feel bad about doing that. End of the day, you are earning money. It's your income, it's your livelihood. And you will effectively die through starvation if you can't afford food because you keep allowing students to reschedule over and over again. And on the subject of cancelling lessons, there is another point to think about as well, which is in relation to packages. So you may have a student that will book a package and then they will cancel lesson after lesson after lesson. And if you are quite lenient, you will allow them to keep doing that. And then they may get to a point where their package has run out and then they request to extend that package. Obviously, it's up to you if you do that. If you do accept that request, then more than likely they will continue doing the same thing continuously, and it will just waste your time. So you don't be afraid of being strict and direct with students who do take the piss, putting it in an informal way, because some people do that, and let's face it, we're trying to earn a living. We haven't got time to mess around with people like that. Another problem that you may face will be in relation to Italki Classroom. This is a video chat service available on the Italki website itself. However, I've never used it, basically. So it's primarily used for students in China that don't have access to Skype, because Skype and Google, etc. are banned. They have to use a VPN. Obviously not all students are able to do that, so Italki Classroom is available as another option for Chinese students to learn English. However, the issue that you more than likely will find, at least at the time of recording, I decided to emphasise that when you try to access the Italki Classroom, you'll find that your internet isn't strong enough, not enough bandwidth, etc. And it's a real issue. So I've never used Italki Classroom. Sometimes you will get students in China who will request lessons on Italki Classroom, and you have to specifically say to them before accepting the lesson that, have you got Skype? Italki Classroom doesn't work. And more often than not, they do reply and say, look, yeah, here's my Skype address. Happy days. And the last thing to think about is about China. And I don't mean this in a generalised way or a racist way or anything like that, just to clarify, but I have had endless problems with students from China, people that will book a lesson and they won't say anything in the lesson when they book it. I will message them and say, before I accept the lesson, can you tell me a bit about yourself, things like that. Sometimes I have accepted the lesson, but then I think about 5 times in a week it was once, I had 5 students, new students from China. They requested a lesson, I accepted it, this was in the early days, and not one of them attended the lesson. They didn't answer on Italki, anything like that, and it was just a complete waste of time. So generally I do not accept lesson requests from students in China. Some I do if they have messaged me beforehand and they seem genuine. And another issue with China is that you will get parents requesting lessons, but then when you actually get to the lesson, it turns out that it's their 4-year-old child, and you specifically said on your profile that you don't teach children. So just be wary when it comes to China. I haven't had that issue with any other country. If you talk about Hong Kong or Taiwan, no problem at all. It's just China where I've had that issue. Other teachers may say the opposite. And the last thing to think about is time changes. So I'm talking about daylight saving time, things like that. I have had issues where I will have a whole day of lessons booked, but in some areas of the world, the time has changed, which means effectively you would have 2 lessons at the same time, because in the other time zone of the other lesson, that time hasn't changed, if you know what I mean. So I have had some issues when it comes to that. Not many, it's fairly minor, but if you do have students from, the Northern Hemisphere, Southern Hemisphere, Europe changes their time at a different time to Canada, things like that, potentially you will face issues. I think that's it in terms of problems. Just be patient and remain sane when it comes to these issues, because they will happen all the time. So that marks the end of my 6 video series all about teaching on Italki. I hope you've appreciated me sharing some of my experience over the last year. One thing I just want to point out is that obviously my experience will be different from everyone else's. Many people teach in a different way and see Italki as a different teaching tool. So it's not, some people would see it not just about conversation, it might be more about exercises and grammar, things like that. So all in all, every teacher is different. You are probably different from me, but hopefully this gives you a different perspective to think about when you are hopefully getting approved by Italki and getting started with your lessons. So thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, tell me all about your teaching experience and some of the problems that you faced. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you later.